Hundreds of communities are being washed away by gully erosion across the 36 states of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. And for most of the affected communities, relief is not anywhere close, as there is no hope that their ancestral or residential homes and farmlands will survive the havoc of the deadly natural disaster that has equally claimed many lives and left several others with different degrees of injuries. As we speak, there are no reliable records, or none at all, about the total number of gully erosion sites and affected communities in Nigeria. And this only points to one thing, which is that the country is yet to have a comprehensive strategy or plan to effectively fight gully erosion as an environmental challenge facing the many communities that have been unlucky to be ravaged by the menace.
The situation is terrible, especially in the southeast, because they fall within the lower end of the watershed. If you have been to some of the sites, especially I can give you an example of Agulu in Anambra State, Agulu-Nanka axis. It's terrible. You find a gully up to about 100 meters to 150 meters deep. That is, if it were to be in some serious countries, they could declare the area a state of emergency or a disaster-prone area. But because we aren't even taking things the approach they ought to be, we have not been able to find a permanent solution to gullies in Nigeria. And the solutions are supposed to be sequential. You first of all understand the geology of the area, because erosion is prone to everywhere. But if you understand the geology, you know if the composition of the soil or the rock underneath the area you are has the capacity to withstand that erosion force, either by wind or by water.
There are triggers to to erosion. And when I'm talking of erosion now, I'm not talking of superficial erosion. I'm talking of gully erosion. They have triggers. One is natural. The second one is anthropogenic. The natural one is like climate, that's heavy rainfall, temperature, something like folding structural deformations. But the anthropogenic are man-made effects, like poor grazing, poor agricultural practices, and poor construction, like road construction, like building construction. So these are the two main triggers of erosion. Most importantly is these areas have heavy rain. And heavy rain is one of the climatic factors that lead to gullying. Then the underlying factor of all of them is the geology, because they contain a specific part of geological formation, which we call unconsolidated friable geological formation, which were not cemented, so they are easily carried away by rain. And this formation in some places in the southeast and Benue, they are called Ajale formation, Ajale sandstone.
This is Straight Talk. Welcome to the program. I am TYAV. What has become Nigeria's gully erosion crisis is said to have been identified as early as the 1930s by the colonial government, with the preferred solution being the inauguration of the first tree planting campaign in the country that has now become an annual ritual across the 36 states of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. The plan was to be able to control erosion, especially on the steep slopes that were seen as being prone to attack by erosion. From the tree planting campaign of the 1930s, it was not until the Second Republic under President Shehu Shagari that Nigeria, through the Federation Account Act of 1981, established the now infamous Ecological Fund as the country's first major direct funding intervention to control soil erosion and address other ecological challenges like flood, drought, desertification, oil spillage, pollution, storm, tornadoes, bushfire, crop pest, landslide, and earthquake, amongst others, when they do occur. The law, which has been amended on 3 different occasions in the last 36 years through Decree 36 of 1984, Decree 106 of 1982, and the Allocation of Revenue, etc., Modification Order of July 8, 2002, provides mandatory allocation and disbursement of 2% of the Consolidated Revenue Fund on first-line charge to the 3 tiers of government as Ecological Fund. From the 1930s of the tree planting campaign to 1981 of the Ecological Fund to date, it has been 87 years of the story of gully erosion in what is today Nigeria. We have visited a number of gully erosion sites across the country, and we must say the report is similar. That of how there has been either no intervention or one coming so late after the disaster has wreaked all the havoc it can on the helpless communities. This is a gully erosion site in Boko, one of the major towns in Benue State, north-central Nigeria. It has continued to grow wider and wider without any measure taken to arrest it in the last 3 decades or so. The gully erosion has practically cut off Boko town into 2 halves, and at the Akajume neighborhood where we visited, we are told the gully has taken a life of its own, sweeping away many houses, property, and taking a number of lives along with it over the years.
Na eluna ni la government or government for ave. Any state sin federal government.
Authorities of the Benue State government have not been forthcoming on offering explanations on why, for such a long time, nothing has been done at this particular erosion site to control it. And this speaks volumes that if nothing has been done on the gully erosion site in a major town in the state, then the situation in other communities, especially in the rural areas, can only be imagined. Before her appointment as the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, Amina Mohammed, who was Nigeria's Minister of Environment, took the hot seat on Street Talk, where she said that members of the legislature should be held responsible for non-inclusion of the gully sites in their respective constituencies into the budget for execution of erosion control projects.
The way in which we've dealt with it has not been, I think, effective. We've looked at this as projects that come as constituencies. So every constituent who is in the National Assembly comes from a community where this erosion is a very big problem, and it's an emergency, and so they take the decision that that's where they would like to see investments made. But it's never been comprehensive enough. It's really an emergency band-aid that you put on a far bigger problem. What you've seen in the budget has basically been the same investments made by the National Assembly for erosion projects.
In Nigeria's Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, it is at the convenience of the authorities, especially those of the FCT administration, to blame the situation on the residents, claiming that the Gully Erosion sites across the rural and semi-urban areas are not reported by the affected communities for necessary action. A practical example is the case of the gully that is cutting off the Dangara Yaba Road in ABUJA Area Council of the territory.
Dangara Ashara Road. Oh, Dangara.
This is the condition of the Dangara Yaba Road as we speak. The road which connects the FCT Fishing Festival site with the Abuja-Lokoja Expressway has become worse by the day. The Dangara community has been a site of gully erosion for several decades, with an unending challenge which the authorities say they are not aware of, even being a research subject for some scholars over the years. Here, the loose banks of the water body in the community have given way to the gully erosion that has now not been controlled for such a long time.
Calling them to put more efforts to improve, including this Bobo bridge that one is almost cut off. So we want a government to assist us in order not our road should not be caught.
The Gully Erosion sites in Boko local government area of Benue State and ABUJA Area Council of the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, in north-central Nigeria are both outside the affluence of the capital cities. The story is, however, not any different for communities right within the state capitals, where the attention of the authorities should not be difficult to attract. But then the situation is hardly any different. These are the clean and green streets of Calabar, the capital of Cross River State in south-south Nigeria. But then just meters away from this beauty is the gully erosion ravaging the Kebre community of the state capital.
This is one of the deadly gully erosion sites in Kebre community in Calabar Municipal Area Council of Cross River State, south-south Nigeria. It has displaced several families, and we're also told that at the moment it's a threat to even other public buildings within this neighborhood.
It is terrible. The thing nearly swallowed me up. That's my house. But for the community that dragged me out of the place, it could have finished me that night. When I was building, there was nothing like flood in this place. But all of a sudden, NDDC brought gutter from somewhere and passed in front of my house. Now, they dropped this gutter on bare land. And so the thing started eating up there without our knowledge. And when it came out here, the first thing we knew was that it took that house. And from there, we started raising alarm. It took that house in April and mine in August. And this place you are seeing here, there were 3 flats. You cannot find anything there again. It is now pursuing the primary school. And my appeal is for the governor to look into the problem and see that he helps us out of it. Personally, I have no place to stay. I'm squatting with somebody.
Along with your family?
Along with my family, yes.
That's how we have been praying to God and asking the government to come to our aid, that we are here suffering. But when we really come in here, it was not like this. This place was a tableland. It wasn't like this. I think the bad hard work of the, what they call it?
Construction.
Yes, from the other side, I think he called a neighbor that they brought it from Agrofit to this other part of Kebre here that causes all this. So from then, since last year, it was a nightmare for us. Our neighbor here packed out. so many people. You can see the building is half, as you have seen it, and other places, the other side. So we are just here by the mercy of God. People have been coming telling us to park. I say, where are we parking to? So let government come to our aid. And this year, they told us they were coming since November last year. Up till now, we have not seen anything, but we pray that it should be faster.
In Ecological community, houses and other property have curved in, with others also waiting to give way. The damage is colossal, and it has gotten this bad after the authorities did not show any immediate interest, even though their attention was drawn to the disaster by the residents. The story of Ecological community is not different from that of Ecological, also in Calabar, the state capital, that started in 2005, and the construction of a drainage that was later abandoned by the administration of then Governor Donald Duke and his successor, Leon Imoke, was to make the situation worse.
The problem is so widespread that the intervention so far is like a drop in the ocean. We have catalogued that you heard about emergency declaration in some of the sites where we may visit tomorrow. So that will expose the magnitude of the problem, which is far beyond the resources a state can take. We had taken stock of the erosion menace, done audit of all our sites, cataloged them, and presented it before our partners, both the World Bank and the federal government.
With the Gully Erosion crisis across the country, one cannot help but then ask what has happened to ecological funds disbursed to the states and the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, since 1981, which is a period of 36 years. This is what we know. The Ecological Fund, which is drawn from 2% of the monthly Federation account, is under the office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, the SGF, and directly managed by a permanent secretary. In the allocation of the 2% from the Federation account, the federal government gets 1% of the ecological funds on a monthly basis, while the states and the FCT get 0.72%, and then the local governments receive 0.6%. Between June 2015 and November 2016, the records from the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation show that the 1% of the federal government's share of the ecological fund amounted to 59.739 billion naira, out of which 20%, that is about 11.94 billion naira, was released to the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA. And then 15%, which is about 8.960 billion naira, was given to the Great Green Wall Agency, the GGW, as subventions. We will need the Ecological Fund Office to explain how it spent the balance of 65%, which is a total of 38,830,350,000 naira, on the 12 projects displayed on its website as its achievements. And for the 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, within the same 18-month period of June 2015 and November 2016, about 66 billion naira was disbursed to them from the Federation account as their share of the Ecological Fund. The records show that the states with the highest allocations within the period under review are Kano with 3.2 billion naira, Imo 2.6 billion naira, Katsina 2.4 billion naira, Lagos 2.3 billion naira, and Oyo 2.2 billion naira. The others are Borno 2.172 billion naira, Kaduna 2.170 billion naira, Benue 2.055 billion, Bauchi 2.04 billion naira, and then Jigawa 2.031 billion naira. And from the bottom up, there is the FCT with 274 million, Niger State 985 million, Bayelsa State 1.2 billion, Ebonyi State 1.362 billion, and Gombe State 1.368 billion naira. The other states include Ekiti 1.388 billion, Nasarawa 1.44 billion, Kwara 1.457 billion naira, Abia 1.44 billion, and Zamfara 1.555 billion naira. There are no explanations on how and why some states, the Federation, and local government councils alike will receive the ecological fund allocations that are way higher than others. But then there are hardly any projects also on the ground funded with these monies across the country to justify any of their allocations. One thing that is sure is the fact that the ecological fund has been a sore point in the relationship between the states and the federal government, especially in recent times. It was in April 2017 that the 36 state governors at the meeting of the National Economic Council, constitutionally chaired by the country's vice president, demanded for an audit of the 1% ecological fund accruing to the federal government.
Actually, Governor El-Rufai was appointed a chairman of a committee to investigate that issue of ecological fund. He investigated and discovered that certain states were given. Some states, including some PDP states that were termed unfriendly, were not given. For example, River State was not given. So, and he came and reported this matter to the Economic Council and recommended that equity demands that states that did not get should at least be given that amount of money, and then that should be the starting point for the ecological fund. And from that point on, parameters will be set for the disbursement of the ecological funds. And his committee has been charged with the responsibility of recommending these parameters. The 2 billion naira was collected before my time. And as we are talking, it's the subject of investigation. Because, I don't know, some people petitioned to the AFCC and they came here, we gave them our personnel who led them to the alleged areas where these works took place. They have gone, they have inspected, and in their estimation, nothing has gone on. And I think this situation is replicated in most of the states, or all the states where these monies were taken at that time.
All the information and all the noise you've been hearing about the ecological fund is limited to what the federal government is doing with its own share. State governments have not been forthcoming in even acknowledging that they've been receiving these ecological funds. Neither is the local government also acknowledging that they are even receiving this.
Perhaps it is time for the citizens to start asking their governors about the whereabouts of the ecological funds allocated to their respective states. It is a sad commentary that the 2013 largesse of free 2 billion naira each given to 17 of the 36 states of the Federation by the administration of then President Goodluck Jonathan was from the 1% ecological fund of the federal government, which the government at that time did not see any gully erosion project in the country to invest the money on, but to warehouse it and share in the reckless manner it did to some of the states. This has been the fate of the infamous ecological funds in Nigeria, where a number of the former state governors across the country have also been dragged before the law courts over charges of misappropriation of the funds and outright corruption. In part 2 of our focus on the gully erosion crisis in Nigeria, we shall take you to the southeast that remains the epicenter of the disaster in the country. The searchlight will be on the intervention project of the World Bank inaugurated in 2012 to address the failures of state governors to invest in the control of gully erosion in their respective states, but is now being trailed by allegations of corruption. That's Straight Talk. Thanks to our partners, Media Dimensions, for their support. I am TYAV. Thanks a lot to you for watching. Goodbye from Abuja.